The village was shrouded in a deep silence. Alaba had once been a place filled with the joyful cries of newborns, but now an eerie emptiness filled the air. Women clutched their wombs in despair, and men whispered in fear, wondering if their lineage would soon end. It was said that a curse had fallen upon the land, rendering every young couple barren, but few knew the true horror that lay behind this curse. Ajoke, known affectionately as Iya Abiye, had once been the pride of Alaba village. People traveled from neighboring villages to seek her help, as her hands were blessed. She was a skilled midwife who brought life into the world and healed sick babies. Her craft had been passed down through generations, from her great-grandmother to her grandmother, and then to her. She worked tirelessly alongside her assistant, Tiwa, and her two apprentices, Bola and Kemi. In those days, Iya Abiye's home was always bustling with activity. Men would arrive with their heavily pregnant wives, and children would run around, laughing and playing. The women trusted her. They saw her as a mother figure, a protector of life. Pregnant women are taken into the labor room, a small room in her hut with a wooden bed and a basket containing things needed for delivery. After delivery, the baby is taken to the bathroom for its first bath, with a new sponge and soap done by Tiwa. The mother is moved to another room for proper care by the apprentices. Ajoke's news of safe delivery have gotten to the neighboring village that people leave their village to come give birth at Alaba village. Once a month, Ajoke would go to the forest with her assistant to source for different leaves suitable for different aliment that borders mothers and babies. She often go with her assistant. One afternoon, Tiwa went to meet Ajoke in the kitchen, where she was making herbal concoction for babies. Iya Abiye, she began, I will like to discuss something with you. Ajoke replied, I am all ears. I have been with you for 5 years now, and I think that I have learned all that I need to know. I will like to start my own business too. Ajoke sighs, you still have a lot to learn. When the time is right, I will let you know. But as the months passed, whispers began to emerge. It started subtly. Tiwa, the ever-dutiful assistant, began visiting homes on her own. She offered to help with sick children and even sold herbal concoctions that she claimed were blessed by Iya Abiye herself. Iya Abiye did not mind initially. She saw it as Tiwa learning the craft. But then, more rumors started spreading. Did you hear? Whispered one of the villagers. Tiwa is treating babies on her own now, even when Iya Abiye hasn't given her permission. Iya Abiye was not pleased. When she confronted Tiwa, Tiwa apologized, saying she only wanted to help those in need. Iya Abiye lets it go, thinking that perhaps Tiwa was simply ambitious. But then a tragedy struck. One morning, several babies who had been born the night before suddenly passed away. Their mothers wailed in grief, and their fathers gathered outside Iya Abiye's house, demanding answers. In their sorrow and rage, they turned on her, blaming her for the deaths of their children. The village elders held a meeting, and after a lengthy discussion, they decided that Iya Abiye had brought misfortune upon Alaba. Despite her pleas, Iya Abiye was banished from the village. She left with a heavy heart, leaving behind her apprentices, Bola and Kemi, who now had no choice but to work under Tiwa, who had quickly taken over as the village midwife. She assured the villagers that she would bring them no harm, that she would keep their children safe. With time, Tiwa gained even more fame. People still traveled from far and wide, but now they came to Tiwa. Bola and Kemi worked tirelessly, though they noticed that Tiwa had changed. She was no longer the gentle assistant they remembered. She was stern, harsh, and paid them barely enough to survive. Yet they stayed, for they had nowhere else to go. Years passed, and then strange things started happening. The young women of Alaba village could no longer conceive. Those who tried failed time and time again. Frustrated, many young men took wives from neighboring villages, but even these women could not bear children. Fear grew like a thick fog over the village. In desperation, the young men went to the king, King Ola, pleading for his help. The king listened and sympathized with them. He summoned the village priest, Oluwo, a man known for his wisdom and insight into the spiritual realm. Baba Oluwo arrived with a heavy heart. He knew the village had been plagued by darkness, though he did not yet know its cause. In the center of the palace courtyard, he spread a white cloth on the floor and placed a long, white bead in the center. The villagers gathered around, watching in tense silence as he knelt before the bead and whispered some prayers. The bead began to tremble, and Baba Oluwo sighed deeply. "There is great evil here," he murmured, "and we must uncover it." The villagers looked at one another in fear. Who among them could be the source of such evil? "We must call for the village midwife," Baba Oluwo announced. "Madam Tiwa." A murmur spread through the crowd. Why Tiwa? They had trusted her. She had been the one to help them through all these years. But the king's guards were swift, and soon Tiwa was brought before the priest, standing with a calm expression, though her eyes darted around nervously. Baba Oluwo held up a small brown calabash and handed it to her. "Drink this," he commanded. "It will reveal the truth." Tiwa hesitated, but the guards pushed her forward, forcing her to drink. She gulped it down, her face twisting in disgust. For a moment, she stood silently, but then something changed in her eyes. She began to tremble, her expression turning wild and shocking. "Yes, it was me," she screamed suddenly, her voice echoing through the courtyard. "I did it! I killed those babies!" The crowd gasped, stepping back in horror. Some women clutched their chests, while others covered their mouths in disbelief. "I hated her," Tiwa continued, pointing a trembling finger in the direction where Iya Abiye had once lived. "She had everything. Everyone loved her. I wanted that for myself." Tears streamed down her face, but her lips twisted into a smile. "When she was banished, I finally got what I deserved. But it wasn't enough. I wanted more." The villagers listened in stunned silence, horrified by her confession. "I started selling the first bathwater and sponges of the babies I delivered," she laughed, her voice shrill. "Rich people from the city paid me well for them. They needed them for rituals, and I was more than happy to oblige." The priest's face was filled with sorrow as he asked, "And the barrenness of our young women?" Tiwa threw back her head and laughed, a sound so chilling that some of the villagers flinched. "That was my gift to all of you. I used those who trusted me, took their hope and sold it for wealth and power. They will never bear children. None of you will." The men and women of Alaba were struck with disbelief, their faces drained of color. They had trusted her, revered her, and she had betrayed them in the most horrific way. In a rage, the villagers surged forward, but the king held up his hand. "No," he said, his voice filled with authority. "She will face justice, but not at our hands. She will be left to the gods." Tiwa was taken to a secluded place on the edge of the forest, where she was left to wander alone, a fate reserved for the most cursed of souls. The villagers returned, shaken and somber, vowing never to speak of her again. After Tiwa's banishment, Baba Oluwo performed a cleansing ritual over the village. It took months, but gradually, hope returned to Alaba village. After a year passed, the sounds of babies' cries filled the air once again, and peace settled over the village like a soft blanket. But some say that on some nights, when the wind howls through the trees, a faint but scary cry can be heard echoing from the forest. The villagers avoid that place, and children are warned never to go there, for it is said that Tiwa still wanders, bound to her curse, forever haunted by the cries of the children she had betrayed.
I hope you enjoyed the story. If so, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell for more stories like this one. Goodbye.